Hey everybody, I'm your host, Trennow, and this is episode number 4 of the Toradora Discord server podcast. With me today, we have a special guest, Shin.
Hello, everybody. How's it going?
Shin is
It's me.
Shin is actually a part of our moderation team. He's one of our 3 moderators in the server, and he's also pretty active on the Reddit page too.
I try my best. Just, try to be the best I can be. The one and only. The man, the myth, the legend.
That's actually the second incidence of that phrase on the this podcast. Loss used it to describe CP Man, actually. Which, speaking of CP Man, he wanted to. Well, him and Loss both wanted to be here on this episode today. But unfortunately, just due to availability over the next couple weeks and when we could all do it, we decided to go ahead and record the episode anyway, and they will, of course, will be on later episodes, of course. Back with Shin, even.
Yeah.
So, something we've been doing is getting to know our users a little bit better. And, naturally, we got to do the same for you, Shin, of course.
Of course.
So, couple softball questions here. How did you get into Toradora? Where'd you find it?
So, how I got into Toradora is actually kind of a funny story. My best friend was at college at the time, and his college roommates had watched it, and were all, in love with and obsessed with the show. But their thing was, their favorite character was Ami. And he could not stand Ami. He fucking hated her. He just thought she was the worst. And so he wanted someone to back him up. So because he was like, okay, Shin has taste. He's a smart man. I'm going to get him to watch this show so I can see what his opinion is on this. So I can kind of know what's going on here, see why these people love her so much. So he got me to watch it. I actually didn't want to at first because I really wasn't all that into rom-coms yet. I was more into just more like action shonen kind of thing. But
Right.
I watched it on a whim and immediately fell in love with the show. Just never looked back since. It's kind of a funny story to tell, honestly, because in a different world, there is a really good chance I never would have seen or even heard of Toradora. But just because of a single message in 2013, there we have it.
It's funny how things work out like that sometimes. The slice of life genre does take a little bit to get into because I feel like most people's introduction to anime is just like an action or adventure, something like that. But when you do get into slice of life, it's actually really refreshing. It's a lot more entertaining than I think most people will think about it on their first thought.
Oh, I completely agree. Honestly, it's become almost exclusively the genre that I watch. With a few exceptions like One Piece and things like that. I really do enjoy the more slice of life, like a more relaxing, kind of happy-go-lucky sort of anime.
Right. That's understandable. It's nice for them to have a nice outlook. I feel like there's a lot of action ones, or not necessarily just action, but a lot of the bigger animes right now have been really dark kind of as of late. With stuff like Darling in the Franxx, where it's like a very depressing dystopian world.
Oh, definitely. Which is one, admittedly, that is in my queue to watch. But yeah, it's like I feel like life, just the real world, already has so much negativity kind of going on. It's nice to just be able to have that moment, that almost like breath of fresh air. You know what I mean? Where you can just have this world where it's like, okay, the problems here are so simple and just so happy and lackadaisical. It's nice. It's almost like a little escape from your kind of day-to-day reality.
Oh, I agree. Immersion in entertainment and actual escapism is really important, and there's not much of it left, just because of the world we live in.
Very true, unfortunately, but what can you do?
Right. Now let me ask you this. How'd you find out about the Discord server?
So the Discord, I was actually not a founding member of, but I joined within 2 weeks of its creation.
In its infancy.
Yeah, so we're going back a little ways, so forgive me if my memory is a little hazy. But it was June or July, I believe it was July of 2016. I had already been subscribed to the subreddit for a while, just was kind of lurking, looking at posts, things like that. And one of the other moderators there at the time posted a link to the Discord saying, hey, we've started this, blah, blah, blah. It's for fans of Toradora to kind of get together. And I didn't join it immediately upon seeing that. I kind of just saw it on my phone, scrolled past, and moved on. But it was about a week and a half later that I was just like, you know what, F it. Let's see what's going on here. And I joined.
Oh, okay.
And there were a few members. I think at the time we had really only 15 or 16 guys, honestly. So it's definitely ballooned
it's grown
from there.
Quite a bit.
Oh, yeah. 100%.
Now, I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this one, but who is your favorite character in Toradora? We keep a tally of this.
So,
right now, Taiga's in the lead with Ryuji at just close behind.
Well, surprisingly, I suspect I'll be the only one to vote for her, but that's fine. Someone has to. My favorite character is definitely Minori Kushieda, or Minorin, as she's usually referred to as.
Mm-hmm.
I really just kind of relate to her, honestly. I've worked basically since I was 15, 16 years old. Just always had to work jobs just to financially support myself and things like that. So I kind of get where she's coming from her perspective, where she's willing to sacrifice some of her more quote unquote traditional kind of high school things, little first fling and friendships and things like that, just for the sake of working and trying to move a little further. So I definitely connected with the character pretty quickly.
That's good reasoning though. When you actually have that connection to a character, it makes it much more enjoyable to see them experience the different adventures and life lessons along the way, and in something like Toradora, where they actually have genuine life adventures and pretty good insights into life itself.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. Yeah, it was definitely it just made sense for her to be my favorite character, I guess. And I acknowledge that within the confines of the show, it wouldn't make sense for Ryuji to pick her over Taiga. I get all that. I acknowledge all that. Just for me personally though, I just definitely think she's the best, my favorite of the characters.
Building off that, what do you think of in the first OP of the series with the I'm not sure infamous, but certainly famous noodle arm scene on the roof?
I'm trying to recall what you're talking about. I don't know why that draws a blank for me.
It's the last thing in the original OP, the first one, pre-parade, and they're all on the roof, and Minori is talking to them, but it has that weird arm animation.
I wish I had an answer to that, but for reasons I'm honestly not entirely sure why. But I remember the scene that you're talking about, and I remember the obviously I've seen the OP got so many times at this point, but that specific animation quirk isn't really ringing any bells to me, to be perfectly honest.
Well, I know what you're gonna watch right after this.
That is 100% correct. I will probably see it and then slap myself in the face for completely forgetting about what it was.
Oh, I know how you feel. I was writing a review one time, and it was the episode where he wraps the scarf around her at the very end, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I did not mention that in my review. I was just like, what the heck? I just wrote how many paragraphs of stuff, and I forgot the single most important scene that I literally just watched because it was at the end.
Oh God, it's funny how that happens, isn't it? It's oh, it's so crazy, the way brain farts will occur.
Right. So, did you find the Reddit page itself just from Googling Toradora, or searching it specifically on Reddit?
So, once again, forgive me if I'm misremembering, because we're going back a couple of years.
Oh, it's okay.
I believe I was on our anime, AWWNIME, because there had been a picture, and there had been a picture of Taiga posted, and in the comments of the picture, someone had tagged the subreddit, and this was very shortly after I finished watching the show, and so I clicked the little tag, and then moved over to the subreddit and just casually subscribed to it. So nothing super momentous or anything, but just through basically Reddit. I don't think I actively searched Google for the Toradora subreddit, but who knows? I could also see myself doing that. So I'm pretty sure it was just linked in a comment thread, though.
Right. So where does Tora stack against your other favorite animes?
In the slice of life genre specifically, it's definitely my favorite. I'd probably say there's a good argument that it's my favorite anime in general.
Right.
I mean, it doesn't really have that many competitors, I guess. I mean, obviously, if we're including manga, One Piece would probably trump it, just because that's had such a long-term kind of impact on my life. Just, obviously, as you know, One Piece is never ending.
Oh yeah, that's Joe talked about that. Like, it just keeps going on and on and on.
Exactly. It just doesn't end. But I would be able to pretty confidently say that Toradora is my favorite anime.
Nice.
Yeah.
Good taste. Good taste.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's a reason I'm so involved in the community. Just because it's phenomenal.
It's actually, speaking of the community, Toradora has a really strong one, not just within our server or Reddit, but like in general, that's still like that's something people talk about still years down the line, even though this is a 2009 show.
No, it was very surprising to me to see how many people were so passionate about the show still. I mean, I follow so many more, I guess, traditionally popular anime, and it's like their servers are comparably popular, and some of them are even significantly less. I mean, I haven't checked it in a while, but the one thing that blew my mind recently was when I saw the movie Your Name, which is very recently a huge anime hit. For a while, their subreddit was seeing less consistent activity and like new members than the Toradora one, which
that's crazy.
Was ridiculous to me. Now people are probably going to look it up, and now it'll have like double the members or something. No, I remember.
And we're a 2009 slice of life genre, and we're outpacing a major movie.
Exactly. Yeah, it's crazy to me to see how it happens. I mean, I think it just really shows how much of a profound impact the show has on these people. It's like it's weird. It should be such a simple thing. I mean, so many different shows have done the tsundere main girl falls in love with the dude. It's just the characterization of the characters is just so expertly done. I think that once people watch it, they get so drawn in. It really is crazy to see.
It's definitely like if you start to watch it, you're gonna finish it.
Oh, definitely. I've yet to meet someone that has been unable to finish the show.
Once you get into one of the big story arcs, like maybe like the starting at the beach or something, it's definitely kind of like, okay, I'm gonna see where this finishes out, and it's reasonable to do that because it's just a 25 episode show. It's not like, all right, watch 6 seasons.
Oh, absolutely. Like, I mean, it's very popular, like on the subreddit and just in Discord and the community in general. A lot of people always talk about how they wish the show was longer, but I honestly think it's the perfect length. I don't think it needs any more. I think the 24 episodes that it holds, like, tells that story beautifully, wonderfully paced from beginning to end. I think another season or something would just be excessive, in my opinion.
Yeah, it doesn't need another season. The most I could ever say is there's like 2 story arcs that are like as over as quick as they began, and that's the beach arc, and I'm trying to think of the other one.
I know the Ami Stalker arc was significantly longer in the light novel. I was a little surprised at how much shorter the anime did that. I guess another episode dedicated to that would have been nice instead of just that little scene.
Yeah. The most it could have ever used, though, is just like to the whole series would have just been 2 or 3 more episodes, maybe. It certainly never needed a whole nother season or anything.
No, I completely agree with that.
Yeah. Now, how did you get into anime?
So my interest in anime is how to even describe it. I mean, it's kind of like it went on and off. So I first watched anime, of course, as a little kid. I was super into Dragon Ball when I was like 5 or 6 years old. Really into Pokemon, Naruto, things like that.
All of those were really big for getting people into it because they remember from watching it as a kid.
But then once high school hit, I actually stopped watching anime completely. I became a very different person from the Shin. You guys know on the server. I was.
What do you mean by that?
So in high school, I was a bit, to be blunt, pardon my French, but I was definitely a bit of a jackass.
Ah.
I was like the kid that was always partying and doing irresponsible things, and we'll leave it at that. Partying and doing irresponsible things. So, anime
It gets
and...
the message across.
Exactly. So, anime and
Too
video
much of a
games.
Chad for our beta hobby.
I mean, I hate the word, but truth be told, yeah, I guess that would be the best way to describe it. You know, like, I wasn't a jock, because I was never fucking athletic, but I hung out with some, you know, I was real big on bonfires and partying, and just, you know, the whole thing. I want to avoid discussing the details, just to
Oh, of course.
avoid
of
any
course.
sketchiness there, but, no, so I got into all of that, and then, got a little too into that kind of stuff. So then when I was like 20, I was dating a girl, and we had broken up, and it really messed me up. Like, I was in probably the most lonely place I've ever been. Sorry to be all downer here. And, you know, it just kind of like clicked in me. It's like, you know, I've like lost so many of the hobbies I had as a kid because I've just been burning away these years just doing this nonsense and all this stupidity. So I just started like casually like getting back into like the kind of thing. It started with me playing Persona 3 because I had played Persona 4 back when I was like 13 or 14. It was probably one of the last anime quote unquote things I had consumed before I moved past all of that. So I
Right,
played.
and what Persona 4 was on what generation of consoles?
It was on the PlayStation 2, but it came out in
Okay.
2008. So it came out in the generation of the PS3. So it was just like released a generation prior to the current gen at the time. It was a really weird release. But no, so I had gotten Persona 3 FES on my PS3. It was available through the PSN store. And I just played through it just to kind of like escape, essentially, you know, just the loneliness of like, ugh, I'm single. And I loved it so much, I realized, man, I've left behind all of these hobbies, and I miss them, honestly. So it was just like, from that point, it was like I was diving headfirst back into the anime and the video games. I want to say the first show I watched after that was My Love Story, I believe. Which
I'm not familiar with that.
it's more of a comedy than anything else. It's about this
Okay.
really, really, really large Japanese dude. He's like a giant high school kid, like absurdly giant. Like the dude's like 9 feet tall. And
Oh, okay.
like
That kind of giant.
yes, like and like super like jacked and everything, but he just looks like a giant troll essentially. And it's about this like really petite girl in an all-girls school that falls in love with him. But it's more focused on the comedy of the thing than anything else.
Okay.
So then I watched that. Then I got really back into One Piece. Started reading it. Just caught up, basically, with the...
The well that won't dry up.
Oh, yeah, which I'm fine with that. And then, like, Hunter x Hunter was probably the final staple of anime that finally got me to, like, fully commit to just being the hardcore weeboo again that I am today.
Oh, this is a weeaboo-free podcast, server, you name it.
Well, I got some bad news for you. Your server is run by 3 weeboos, so...
So, what are you watching currently?
I'm currently watching Comic Girls, which is not very
Okay.
good. But, so, the same buddy that got me to watch Toradora and his old college roommate, who is now a friend of ours in our own little private server,
Okay.
they wanted to know if it was any good. And, of course, I was the unfortunate soul who, a day after they wanted to know that, asked the group, hey, guys, I'm looking for something new to watch. Any recommendations? And they said, watch this, because we want to know if it's any good. And, spoiler alert, it's not. But I'll probably finish it, because it's not, like, bad enough that it offends me or anything. It's just...
Right. You got to see it through just because it's kind of
Exactly.
like, I've made it this far.
Yeah, and it's unoffensive. I mean, it's just moe trash, you know? Nothing really happens. But,
No serious challenges to be overcome.
not yet, at least. I mean, it's just 4 girls that draw manga, you know? Ooh.
Oh, what episode are you on?
3 or 4. I'm not that far in it yet.
Okay.
So I'm still at the
Okay.
beginning. So who knows? Maybe it'll twist and catch me
Yeah,
off
maybe
guard.
a turnaround. That's still early.
Yeah, I'm not optimistic, but it's okay. It's cute, so that's something, you know.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of anime that's disappointing, what's like your all-time least favorite, biggest disappointment? The one that really just grinds your gears.
Oh, the one that grinds my gears the most by far. Well, there's two. One from 2 different genres. For like the action anime, I'm gonna say it's definitely Fairy Tail, and the reason for that is because Fairy Tail was so good. It was amazing. I was in love with Fairy Tail. There was a
Okay.
time that you could have asked me, what would you rather die, One Piece or Fairy Tail, and I would easily have voted One Piece. I loved Fairy Tail. I loved the world. I loved the way the magic worked. Loved the characters. It was great.
Mm-hmm.
Now it is my least favorite shonen anime, and I believe the only
That's a
show.
big twist.
It is. I want to say it's also the only show on my anime list that I've given a 1 out of 10 because it's gotten so bad. I mean, I just dropped it. I think it's finished now, but oh my god, it was horrendous. So that was really disappointing because it
And
was
so-
so good.
So the series took a bad turn.
It did, yeah. So I'll try to keep things spoiler free for the poor fools that actually still want to watch or read the series, but
Right.
it starts out pretty phenomenal, but then there's a point where they discover like an alternate like dimension sort of thing,
Okay.
and the moment that happens, it's all over. The series just sucks. It's nothing good has happened after that because it's like I don't know. I'm assuming it's for financial reasons. I'm assuming he wanted to make some extra money on merchandising, but the series becomes significantly more focused on fan service after that point. So a lot of the more like cool kind of effects and like action and animation that they had is really more focused on just let's get the female characters in the most compromising and lewd positions we can. Which I get, you know, I understand there's an audience for that. Obviously, Fairy Tail was very popular up until its end, so obviously that worked. It kept its readers and its viewers, but I just thought it was disappointing that the quality of the
When it
story was
compromises the actual show itself.
exactly. And then just the writing itself went to garbage. Like, there were a few things that they had in there where it was very clear they wrote themselves into a corner, but they weren't ready to end the series yet. So they just I won't quite say like any Deus Ex Machina, but they just had some BS to write themselves out of a lot of things that I didn't like.
Oh.
It was, yeah.
Yeah. Now, okay, so now we have a kind of a taste of your, or a handle on your anime tastes. Outside of anime, what's your go-to pastime?
Oh, I'm into quite a few things, surprisingly. I mean, obviously video games, like I mentioned. I'm huge into video games. Before
Good choice,
I got into
good
anime
choice.
and when I was younger, I was super into like the GameSpot forums.
Oh.
Buy basically everything that comes out. But I'm also into fishing. I like to go fish and hike and just walk.
Oh.
I'm a pretty big hippie in general. Spend a lot of my time outside. Used to be really into theater, actually. I still miss that. Unfortunately, that took a back seat when I started to work full time. And writing. Writing is probably the biggest thing of all. I would.
Yeah, you're pretty known for your writing, actually, within the server.
Yeah. So it becomes a little difficult to discuss it sometimes because,
Right.
unfortunately, I mean, I don't want to come off as like I'm humble bragging or anything, but unfortunately, some of my work is published, so it's difficult to share it with certain communities online because it could be very easily used to dox me.
Yeah.
So
And that's understandable.
yeah, but no, I adore writing. Stories, poetry, essays, basically anything. You give me either a pen or a keyboard, and I will type away all day.
Nice. So, we'll keep your published work out of it. But what's been your favorite genre to write in?
For I guess it's not necessarily a genre, but it's more of like a format. I mean, poems are my favorite thing to write by far.
Okay.
The reason for that is because it's more of a puzzle than any other type of writing. When I work on a poem, I usually set specific rules for myself as to like what I can and cannot do, like the meter I have to keep, the rhyme scheme I want to work with, and then the message that I want to convey. And then within those parameters, I make myself try to fit something together, which could be a lot of fun. For
Mm.
like prose work, I guess I tend to fall into a modern fantasy sort of thing, where it's like definitely the idea of magic and powers and things like that exist, but I don't compromise modern technology for it either. So
Okay, so it's a modern day setting.
exactly. Similar to like how the Shin Megami Tensei games or anything like that would like
Okay.
kind of operate. You know, the same sort of parameters and rules, if that makes sense.
Mm. Yeah, I'm not super familiar with Shin Megami Tensei, but I know like the setting is still in the modern world. But I want to say it's about like fighting demons or something.
Yeah. Demons are the spin-off Persona games are about like quote unquote shadows, which are basically demons. Um,
Ah, okay.
did you ever? I don't know. It's like you ever watch Gate, for instance?
I have not
Oh, that's fine.
watched Steins Gate, but not Gate.
See, I've never watched Steins Gate. I need to. So many people bug me about
CP
that
Man
still.
would hang you if he were here.
Well, see, that's why I purposely waited till he fell asleep to record this. I knew that was how that was gonna go. So I was like, nope, we're just gonna wait. Right when I saw his little online icon turn red, we're good.
Okay, so fishing. I didn't have you into fishing. How did you get into that?
I've just always been fishing since I was like 2 or 3. I mean, my dad
Okay.
is just as much of a hippie, if not more so, than me. I mean, I was raised basically like every time I was over there, most of our time was spent outside or in the woods or on a lake or anything.
Shin is actually speaking in between bong hits as we record this.
No comment. Oh, that's Enigma would find that hilarious. But
Enigma.
he's my fellow, I'll say hippie in the server.
Ah.
But no, that plus my mom's side of the family. My grandma lives in a small house on a lake, so I was just always by the water.
Oh, that's a good way to get into fishing.
Oh
I don't
yeah.
fish near as often as I should, but I enjoy it when I do go out there.
No, and admittedly this season I have been very inactive with it because I've been so freaking busy. I've only been out twice. But it's just it's a nice hobby. I'm not like a professional by any means. So I pretty much just grab some night crawlers, hook it up, get a bobber on, and then just toss it out.
All freshwater.
Oh yeah, I just do freshwater fishing. I mean, I don't live close enough to an ocean to do much saltwater.
Right.
I've gone and done some saltwater fishing occasionally. Actually, one of the coolest things I did, which I hadn't been aware of previously, was we got a tackle box that's like buoyant, so it floats. And my
Oh.
dad and I swam like what felt like a mile out. I'm sure it wasn't anywhere near that into the Gulf of Mexico. And just straight up in
Ah.
this water, like well overhead, we're just swimming, and like we just cast out this line, and it was the coolest experience because the water's so clean that as you're reeling in the fish, you can see it coming towards you while you're in the water, and it was the trippiest thing. I loved it. I adored it. I would love to do that again. Because when I did it, I was only like 13, so most of the work
Oh
was
yeah.
my
So this
dad.
is
So
quite some time ago.
exactly, but that was so fun.
Mhm.
But no, in general, I just do freshwater fishing, usually just off the shore. I used to own a boat, so I would be able to get out to the lake on Lake Michigan, but no longer, unfortunately.
The perfect tax shelter, right? A boat.
Exactly.
um. Go ahead.
Just the maintenance on it just became so much, like I couldn't afford it anymore. We had to get rid
Oh
of
yeah,
it.
that's. Oh yeah, they are definitely financially intensive just to keep running and in a good shape before you
Oh,
actually fill it up and go out there.
100%. Yep.
So, what's something the rest of the server wouldn't know about you, though arguably fishing might have been that?
Honestly, I mean, fishing is probably the biggest thing. I tend to try to be pretty transparent with people about what I do in my regular daily day-to-day life.
Mm-hmm.
What wouldn't they know about me? I think they all know that I fix computers. I used to be a substitute teacher. Um, the writing thing they might not have known, just because recently I've tried to kind of like step back from talking about my writing, just
Right.
because I'd rather people not go out looking for it too much.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Can't look for what you don't know exists.
exactly. It's hard to say. I'm a pretty transparent guy, honestly. I feel like the fishing was probably
Probably it.
the main thing. I don't know if I've ever mentioned that I was into theater with people before,
Oh, I'm not
but
familiar with that.
I don't bring it up often because I shouldn't. I should use the past tense with that because realistically, unfortunately, I don't do theater like I used to, just because life is so busy and that takes up so much time. But I used to be a stage manager for a few local production houses here in Chicago.
Oh,
Um,
that's cool.
like it was just basically assisting the cast with things, and then I would take on small roles in plays and things like that around town. It was fun, a
Hmm.
really fun little hobby. Made a lot of good friends from it.
That sounds like it'd be a lot of fun actually, and it's unique. You don't hear about people busting into that often.
Exactly. Yeah, it was really cool. It was I was in a unique situation that I was able to do it so often because I went to school part time because I pay for my own school and all that, which is whatever. And I would work my primary job, and then I just kind of took that on almost as a secondary job. Got money for it when I could, and just volunteered for it in my free time. But once it became to the point that I just couldn't financially afford to only work part time, I had to unfortunately mostly drop it.
Mm. That's understandable. Of course, that's
Hmm.
better reasoning than just
Exactly.
forgetting about it.
Actually, fun fact, a little thing. Whenever sometimes in the server for viewers that aren't in it, I'll go into this thing that annoys the hell out of everyone, which just makes me want to do it even more, where I become like a very loud communist. For reference, I'm not.
Oh yeah.
But most of those lines that I'm actually shouting are lines from a play that I was in, where I played an old
Oh.
communist. That is how I'm able to just spit them out like rapid fire like that, because it's just me just writing down the lines that I had before. If anyone
This
is curious, you could feel free to look it up. The play was called Waiting for Lefty. I played Agate Keller.
waiting for Lefty.
Phenomenal play. Phenomenal. Favorite role I've ever been. But no, so that is the source of communist Shin, if you will.
Right now, his profile picture on Discord is actually Minori, but on her hair is a hammer and sickle.
Yes.
He logged in and a bunch of, was it Minori? Was it people with the Minori role were just like, what are you doing? Or was it somebody else?
uh, a few people get pretty angry about it. Um, I mean, if anyone had actually been like offended and sent me a message, I would have taken it down, of course. Uh, but I don't.
Nah, there people are
Yeah,
just like, why does Minori have a?
exactly.
Why does Shin have a rather?
No. Grape was probably the most vocally displeased with it. Grape and Joe.
Mhm.
But no, it's a fun little thing. And then I got rid of it for a while, but I actually kind of like the Minorine that I chose for the picture, so I'm mostly just keeping it 'cause
Mhm.
it's a good profile pic at this point.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good picture of Minori, or Minorine, as the show would have us believe.
Yeah.
Now, that's actually pretty good. I feel like that's something people wouldn't know about you at all. So with the fishing, I think that's excellent. That's two things really.
Hmm.
Now, origin of your username, because it's not just Shin. It's usually Shin and then like a question mark, exclamation mark.
Well, the question mark exclamation mark came just that's exclusive to the Toradora server. It's usually just Shin
Okay.
or Papa Shin or Big Papa Shin or something else.
Hmm.
Um, the nickname, I gotta tread carefully here because this can also dox me very easily.
Oh yeah.
But no, I got it though. So the nickname originated when I was 14 years old, freshman in high school. I was in class in my biology, and we had a substitute teacher. And for the sake of this story, we're gonna say my name is Jeff. It isn't Jeff, but and my last name does start with an S, admittedly. So the teacher was reading off the names. This substitute, he was like 90 years old. Dude was like half blind, and he just read my name, and he was just like squinting and just looking at me. He's like, "Is Jeff Shindigs here?" I was like, "What?" I was baffled. I didn't know, who. I assumed it was me because it made sense alphabetically. And then because of that, my friends latched onto that and started calling me the Shindig. Uh, and then that eventually changed and morphed over the years because I gained other friends. Because I'm a big dude, I'm like 6'2", like 300 pounds, so giant man, who called me Big Papa. And then when those two friends kind of fused, that nickname became Papa Shins. And then when I went on to Reddit, that name was already taken, so it became Papa Shin. And
What
then
are the odds
since then,
that Papa Shin's of all things?
I have no idea. I'm sure that it was probably some other inside joke with someone that got that taken. But and then ever since then, I've just been Shin, and that kind of worked out anyways as I became more involved in anime communities, because like I feel like Shin is just more of an easy kind of like it's an actual name, you know what I mean, versus Shins.
Yeah.
So now a lot of people just call me Shin, and I mean that's even kind of rolled back to my IRL friends too.
That's that's certainly the most original story, I think. Well, maybe not the most original. It is original. CP Man had a really interesting one too. When that one airs, which it should have by the time this one airs, of course.
Yeah,
you'll have to.
Interested to hear that one because I was curious about the origin of his name too, because I don't know, maybe the internet has jaded me, but his name can mean very different things in different communities.
We talked about that too, and I don't want to give away the joke he had.
I'm definitely
for
excited.
That, but
I'm definitely curious to listen to his podcast. That's for sure.
Okay, so sounds like you've been playing video games for a long time. Do you have like a favorite console? Maybe the one that has a lot of childhood nostalgia for you?
So yeah, absolutely. The console that probably has the nearest and dearest place in my heart is my Nintendo 64 by far.
Attaboy.
Yeah, I love it. Oh my goodness. It's not the first console I ever owned, but it's definitely the first console that I guess I'll use the word hardcore gamed on. I love so many games on that platform. I still have my original one, actually. It's the only console that I have had since release until this day that still works, which is magical. But no,
Nintendo quality is just unmatched when it comes to like their build quality.
It really is, honestly. Like the Switch is the first one that kind of disappointed me there, but I also kind of get it because the Switch has so many moving parts. I can see how it doesn't have that like Nintendium kind of feel to it.
Yeah.
But no, that N64 definitely. I mean, God, there's dozens of games I can just rattle off that I adored on it.
What was your favorite one on it?
I'm sorry, what was that?
What was your favorite one on it?
My favorite game was Banjo-Tooie. So the sequel to Banjo-Kazooie, developed by the famous Rare, or Rareware at the time.
That was back when Rare was actually Rare.
Exactly, yeah. I still think they could come back. I mean, realistically, if you look at their games, like, even the ones they've made for Microsoft, Sea of Thieves is the first, like, quote-unquote bad one, I would say. But I'm also just a pointless optimist. That's why I always argue with Xerix.
I need to make sure Xerax gets on here.
He won't
with the same episode as you one of these days.
I
just because he's the definition of internet tough man, but I would love to actually see if in a voice chat he's like that.
So I have voice chatted with Xerax a few times. He won't voice chat with anyone regularly besides like me and MNG and Fane, who isn't really around too much, but I think you know him. He's a good guy. I love Xerax. He's rough around the edges, but he's a good guy at his core.
Oh yeah, I like Xerax.
Yeah.
He's got me playing War Thunder now.
God damn it, no. Stop. Like,
tell us your thoughts on War Thunder.
I mean,
this is a, for those who don't know, this is a bit of a controversy in the server right now. Is who should be playing War Thunder?
I mean, do you want my real thoughts on them or my Xerax's listening thoughts? Well, my real thoughts is...
Oh, Xerax is listening, because I know he listens to at least part of these.
My Xerax's listening thoughts on War Thunder are, War Thunder is complete fucking garbage. No one should play it. Go play Elder Scrolls Online, you pieces of shit. I will also be fair and give my real thoughts on War Thunder and say I have never seen any gameplay of it. I know nothing about it besides that Xerax shills for it every day of his life. And that makes me not want to play it, because I do not like to give him the satisfaction of winning.
You know, everyone has their reasons, and I'm not here to judge.
Exactly. I'll stick with my Elder Scrolls Online and shill for that as often as I can.
And here's the thing, though. Y'all do have a bonding thing, though. Morrowind.
I'm sorry, what was that? I lost you there.
Oh, y'all do have a bonding thing. Morrowind.
Oh, well, that's funny. That's also bonding and also an argument, because, and this is one I will actually admit I am completely wrong on. This is bad taste. 100% bad taste on me. but Morrowind is actually my least favorite Elder Scrolls game by a pretty significant margin.
Why is that? Because that's the one where like I've never played it, but I know like the nostalgia fans
Yep,
of Morrowind are just all over defending that game.
yep. So I'll admit the lore in Morrowind is phenomenal. I mean, there's a lot of backstory there to kind of really dig your teeth into. My issue with Morrowind is its systems are antiquated in such a way that just don't make sense to me. I mean, it's an action RPG, but yet it still has an RNG based fucking like miss system in it. And Zerek's gonna kill me because he hates when I use the word RNG to describe it, but that is exactly what it is. It's a roll. But anyways,
Why does he describe it as not RNG? Because a roll sounds like RNG to me.
I forget his logic for it. It was because, like, I mean, you can influence it and make it where it's like, you know, the number is a lot less likely to occur, but less likely still random. But whatever. It's a percentile based, you know, where it's like I could swing my sword at like a cliff racer, for instance, and even though it seems like I hit said cliff racer, I could still get something that says missed. And I don't mind that kind of a system in more of a turn-based or a mechanical type of game. But in a game where the action is occurring in real time, I just think it's jarring and just not, in my opinion, not very good. That and this second one is less of an issue because obviously I've modded the game to hell and back at this point to kind of get around this. But I just thought visually, out of all of the games, it aged the most poorly. I mean, yeah, the faces are better than Oblivion's because Oblivion's faces are god awful.
Actually, I don't know. Oblivion might be worse now that I think about it. I mean, but the problem is, what I keep thinking of as Oblivion is those faces, the character models.
So Oblivion definitely has worse faces, but in every other way, Oblivion, and it should look better. I mean, Morrowind's like 2002, Oblivion's like 2006, so of course, but
right.
It's just like Morrowind. It's like the character meshes, the animations, it all just looks wonky to me. But again, I'd like to say that I admit that I am wrong here. This is obviously there is a lot that Morrowind does objectively better than Oblivion and Skyrim. You know, it has a much better magic system. It's much more well fleshed out. It gives you a lot more options as to what you can do with your character. Whereas Oblivion and especially Skyrim really rolled back on that stuff. And
yeah, it's kind of like if we could just get back to like a Fallout 3 style dialogue system in Elder Scrolls.
Well, they still
and actually get some good decisions again instead of just doing these very scripted quests.
They still have some of that. I mean, Skyrim. So Oblivion took a step away from that, and then Skyrim kind of took a step back right in that direction, thankfully. But it's still not where it needs to be.
Yeah, and the combat it's so simple now. It needs something a little bit to make it more interesting rather than just actually making melee weapons good at higher levels for perks that you unlocked already. And it's got to fix the magic system. It's so primitive.
Yeah, it's definitely overly simple. And I mean, at least they've kind of wrote some of that into the lore as to why the magic is getting more simple. Because like the Tamriel and all that is a world in decline, so it's. I don't want to quite call the game post-apocalyptic, but it is definitely like the influence of magicka on that planet is getting weaker as like time progresses. So it would make sense that magic would become less profound throughout the games. It's just I don't know. I just don't like how that translates as far as like what you can do in them. I mean, I do miss a lot of the crafting and options that were available to you in the earlier series, which is fine, but who knows? Maybe Elder Scrolls 6 will fix that. I will still probably put 1,000+ hours into it because I'm a monster.
We just gotta wait till like 2020 at least to figure out.
Oh,
that'll be the case.
That's optimistic. I'm expecting 2022, honestly.
You know, with them it could be anything, and I find it crazy that BGS themselves is still so small for the amount of money they make off their games. And I guess it's, to maintain the high quality, but I do wonder, like, okay, they clearly know how, Bethesda themselves clearly knows how to work with multiple game studios, so why can't they get their own in-house a little bit more expanded and rolling on stuff they know people want?
It's hard to say. I mean, I think at its core is probably just that they're owned by ZeniMax, which I love ZeniMax. I think some of the games that they publish are some of the best games that have come out in the past decade or so. But it is definitely a very greedy publishing house, as honestly most publishers are in this day and age. So I'm sure some of that isn't under their control. I mean, plus the fact that Bethesda isn't a perfect company. I mean, I won't pretend like they're
Oh, of
good,
course.
but who knows? Honestly, I'm sure there's any number of reasons that they haven't.
They certainly aren't perfect, and stuff like the Creation Club highlights that. But I've been really happy with Bethesda as of late because I'm a big Nintendo fan. So their massive support for the Switch has been really enjoyable to see.
No, and the games that they produce are phenomenal. I mean,
Oh yeah.
outside of Fallout 4, I can't think of a single Bethesda game I've been purely disappointed in the past 15, 16 years. And even Fallout 4 had a lot that was good about it. It's just the things that I wanted to be good weren't, in my opinion. But no, I mean, like, some of the games that are published underneath that studio are phenomenal. I mean, Wolfenstein 2, for instance, I think is arguably the best story that has ever been told in a first-person shooter. It's just period, you know. It's wonderful. I think they do a lot of good work. I mean, I could talk about them for hours on end.
Out of the Bethesda games, which is your favorite franchise, and what's your favorite entry in that franchise?
Oh, my favorite franchise is definitely Elder Scrolls. I mean, I've put 1,500 hours plus into that series. It's absurd. My favorite entry is probably Oblivion, I guess. I like them all for different reasons, but I would say Oblivion just because I put the most time in it, and I don't know, I just have an emotional connection to it, because even though the first one I ever played was Daggerfall back when I was like 4 years old.
Oh gosh, that's a long time ago.
It was on my dad's computer. I was obviously so young, I didn't really quite understand it, so Oblivion was probably the first one that I was able to dive headfirst into and like completely immerse myself into this world and just, you know, fall in love. And it was like Oblivion that just got me into so much of the role-playing genre. So definitely that, I would say. And the Elder Scrolls in general is my favorite of their many franchises.
Okay, that makes sense. So, not a whole lot has happened recently in big like news cycles that would interest us. The biggest thing recently was E3, but we have talked a lot about E3 on the podcast. But I want to give you that same opportunity, of course. What was the biggest game that you were excited to see at E3, and did it live up to the hype?
The biggest game I was excited to see at E3, I'm going to discount Elder Scrolls 6 here, because we've talked about it a lot, and they didn't really show much, but that's obviously the biggest
they didn't show anything worth,
No, exactly. But, let's see, my biggest game of E3, the Wolfenstein spin-off, starring his two twin daughters, I think it was like Wolfenstein 1981 or something like that. That looked really cool.
Youngblood.
Youngblood, thank you. That looked really cool, just because, as I said, I was in love with Wolfenstein 2. Seeing Smash Ultimate was a lot of fun. That game looks phenomenal.
Oh, yeah.
I'm really...
Ridley, my boy, is finally in it.
I know, I'm so happy for that. Oh, that's going to be great. What else? Really, this E3 was fairly light for me. Smash was probably the big one there. I thought the Fallout 76 coverage at E3 was probably really cool, and I was definitely really into it. The stuff that's been discussed post E3 has definitely tempered back my expectations and kind of cooled me off a little bit to the game.
What about it have they been discussing that's maybe tempered your expectations?
So,
as that terrible phrase is.
At E3, Todd, I think his name's Todd Howard, made a big deal about the fact that you could play the game by yourself and that it didn't have to be a multiplayer experience, which is cool. You know, I get that it's focused on multiplayer, but then after that, in interviews, he kind of backpedaled a little bit and said, well, by that I meant you don't have to be in a party, but you still will always be online in a server, and also the game does not have any NPCs. It is all robots and your players, which I was like, that is a very different kind of idea than he got across in his presentation.
Because I watched that presentation, and it did make it seem like there was a sort of significant single-player aspect to it.
Mm-hmm. And I'm assuming there's still something, but it is interesting to me that they made such a big deal discussing the quests and things like that. And yeah, I know Mr. Handy's, or I think that's their name, the robots, can still provide quests. I know they do in the main Fallout games, but I was really excited to see the idea of there being, and I know it's so soon after the bomb went off. I didn't expect regular humans really to be around, but I was hoping there would at least be some ghouls or some other presence there for you to talk to.
I liked what I saw, the gameplay and the idea
Hmm.
of suiting up in good power armor and just blowing mutants up and
Oh
everything.
yeah,
Sounds
I
fun,
agree. Some
but I do wonder. I'm like, is this game gonna actually be worth it in the end, or is it really something like you a couple of nights a week you and your buddies squad up, and other than that you kind of forget about 76 until the main entry in a series?
I'm assuming it's going to be the latter there, which for some is worth it. I mean, I'm probably still going to end up buying the game because I buy everything basically. But no, I mean the boss fights and some of the different models of the monsters look really cool. But
Mm.
yeah, I don't think there's going to be much substantial depth to it. I'm expecting it to be as exciting of a game as like Rust or like Conan Exiles was, which they're both fine games in their own right, but what becomes difficult is at that point the community almost always destroys those games, which I don't expect to not occur here. But we'll see. Who knows?
Not a lot of faith in.
No, it's just because I always get myself excited for these types of survival games because it really is right up my alley, that genre.
Uh-huh.
But the difficulty of it comes in is just because, and I don't know why, but these communities attract the most toxic griefers I've ever seen in any game online. Rust especially was completely ruined by the giant pieces of shit that play it. And so I'm hoping Bethesda has systems in place to prevent that. I mean, obviously I could set up a private server if I get enough people together, but we'll see. I'm excited for the game, not overly optimistic for its longevity though.
Now, since you're a member of our mod team in the Discord server, I wanna do something. If I can get all three of y'all on, either separate. Though hopefully we can have all three of y'all on at the same time, of course, as long as everyone's schedule works out and they want to, of course.
You're never gonna get Xerox on here. I can promise you that right now. I'll have to trick him. I'll have to say we're playing
We
something.
will get a War Thunder segment one way or another.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, you should trick him, even if that's what it takes to get him on. We got to get Zerax in here one of these days. I know he listens to at least parts of these, so hopefully he'll skip this part, and then he'll never know what's coming.
Hopefully, we'll see what happens.
Now, so if you had to pick one of your fellow mods to be stranded on an island with for a week, who do you think gives you the best odds of survival?
Do they get to bring anything with them?
No, it's just whatever you find on the island.
Whatever I find on the island, then probably Wishes.
Probably Wishes. What's the rundown on this?
If they got to bring their stuff, I would say Xerox because he owns a lot of guns, so he could help me hunt. Or at least he talks about owning guns. I don't know what he actually has or what he rents or whatever, but probably Wishes just because he's younger, so that probably gives him like. And this is me thinking in video game terms here. Obviously, I don't know how it actually works surviving on an island, but I would assume he is a little bit like stronger, faster, just able to kind of help himself a little bit more. It helps that I've seen a picture of Wishes, so I kind of know what the dude looks like. I couldn't. I mean, Xerox could be 100 pounds or 500 pounds for all I know. So with Wishes, I know at the least the dude is slightly in shape. He is involved in his school and things like that. So I think he would be able to help me on the island. Whereas with Xerox, besides knowing what he is interested in and what he owns, I don't know much about the dude personally. He definitely keeps to himself. So it would be more of a roll of the dice as to whether or not he
All
would actually
according
be.
to his plan, no doubt.
Exactly. Plus, I feel like I'd have to worry about Xerox murdering me for survival if he had to. Which is fine. I would do the same. But Wishes, I feel like I would hope at least wouldn't. But I would say him. But also, I mean, who knows? I could be completely wrong. Like, if I knew more about Xerox, then it might be a different story. But all I know is that he likes guns, which would be useful if he could bring them. But without them, then it's whatever.
That makes sense. So you got reasoning, Wasn't as I expected there to be a hot take in there somewhere about Wish's tastes, but you surprised me.
Wishes has terrible taste. There's no denying that. I guess that's the thing too. Yeah, I mean, if he ever talked about a bad opinion, there's a non-zero chance he wouldn't come off of that island.
Speaking of Wish's opinions, what's the one the red that you just flat out just made you mad? Like you can't believe someone actually thinks that.
All with him. Oh my god.
Yeah, like what's the worst opinion you've seen him state?
They're all so bad. I tend to kind of repress them after he says them. He'll make me passionate about things I didn't even care about before that I didn't even know I cared about. Like, I never played Bloodborne a day in my life, but when I talked him talking shit about it, I was like, no, man, Bloodborne's great. What are you even talking about, bro? What was it? There was one, I think he said that the single worst movie he has ever seen in his life was Marvel's Doctor Strange. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, what? How? How is that even possible, man? Like, and again, it's another one where it's like, I liked Doctor Strange, but I wasn't passionate about it. But you know what? God damn, he has made Doctor Strange one of my favorite movies. So that's definitely one that I remember. But a lot of them, it's just like, I dismiss his opinions at this point because it's like they're so bad. It's like, okay, man, sure. When he first formed the group and I first met him, he had a lot of really weird food opinions that he's kind of more quiet about now. Like texture was a huge thing with him, so he wouldn't eat like most things.
Really?
Yeah. Like I want to say he wouldn't eat like steak or anything like that, for instance. I could be wrong. This is, like I said, we're reaching back years, but no, the Doctor Strange one was just like, bro, like, come on. And it's like, I don't think it's some sort of cinematic masterpiece, but to call it the worst movie ever, it's a good movie. Like, I think it stands up even outside of the context of the MCU. But he hated it, which startled me, to say the least.
Now, to make sure we end on a good positive note here, though, I always enjoy a bit of bashing Wish's tastes.
Of course.
So it's summer, of course. It's brutally hot.
Very.
What are you doing to stay cool right now?
Well, outside of sitting in the AC and playing Elder Scrolls Online all day, my best friend, or one of my best friends, I should say, because this is a different best friend from the aforementioned one with Toradora. But my best friend and then also my dad both own pools. So I pretty much at one of their houses most of the week to swim. I mean, I work so often, honestly, during the day I'm usually cooped up in a small office behind a Best Buy, working, so it's mainly just a pool thing, honestly, and then my AC. Truth be told, the heat doesn't bother me too much because I guess I'm just kind of used to it, you know, just living where I live, and then just, again, I spent a lot of time outside when I was younger. It doesn't bother me, but I spend a lot of time in the pool. That is definitely the big thing.
That sounds good. That's a good choice.
Absolutely.
Especially when you know two people, so you can rotate, so you're not there all the time.
Oh, I don't give a shit. I will go there every single day. I mean, I don't care. I mean, they both live within walking distance. I don't even have to take my car. It's great.
Oh, perfect.
Oh, yeah, right? Then I don't got to pay for the pool.
That's great.
It's 10 out of 10.
All right, well, we are just about at an hour here.
Oh, wow, that flew.
Shin, thank you for... Yeah, I know, it goes by fast. It's a fun way to spend an hour, though, I think.
Yeah, damn, I want to do more. Well, that's okay, though.
No, you're always welcome back on. Just message any of us, and we will always happy to get you on episodes with other people, talk on special panels, all that kind of fun stuff that we're working on to make sure we can continue up the podcast, make it strong and interesting.
Absolutely.
And thank you for posting the links to these on Reddit. We greatly appreciate that.
Of course, yeah, I'll continue to do so. I think I'm going to wait a little longer to pin them, because I noticed with episode 2, I think it got pinned so fast, people think it's still just the episode 1. So I'm going to let them just stay in the subreddit for 24 hours maybe, and then pin them after that first day. But yeah, I'm more than happy to keep on posting them there. So.
Thank you. Yeah, no, we appreciate it. Yeah. Oh, Xerox is talking to me, actually.
Oh.
In the main server.
Oh, wonderful.
But my day is made now.
There you go.
Xerox. Well, thanks again for coming on. And like I said, we look forward to having you back on. And we will see you guys next time, which should have another special guest on. I'm not sure if it's going to be Soy Sauce Boss or Wishes yet. We just got to work that out with scheduling, who can do what and when. But we look forward to seeing y'all again. And thanks for watching.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.